Hello, everyone. You're welcome to Obusia Being podcast. My name is Gertrude Asan, and we'll be talking about Wales today. You may have listened to our previous guests on the episodes that were aired a few weeks ago. In fact, when I listened to it, I had goosebumps all over. I even shed a tear at some point. And you may have equally screamed, Ebusia Bain, this can never happen in my family. My friend, before you get too confident, ask yourself, do you really know how your family will handle things after you are gone? Or even after your loved ones are gone? How will be handled? It could even be worse. But the good news is that you have the power right now to decide what happens to your assets after your passing. Your loved ones equally have the power to decide what happens to their assets after they are gone. And that power lies in a simple yet crucial document, a will. So in this episode, we'll be diving into the essentials of making a will. Do you even need one? What happens to your spouse and children if you don't have one? What about the myths surrounding wills? We'll break it all here down into bits and pieces. Sit back, relax, and let the legal experts do the talking. So joining me today, we have Paulina Apusia Danso, a private legal practitioner. You're welcome.
Thank you, ma'am.
And we also have Abdul Latif Shaibu, also a private legal practitioner with several years of experience. In fact, people call him lawyer. So feel free to call him that wherever you meet him. You're welcome, Mr. Shaibu.
Can get you.
I indicated earlier that you have the power to change some of these worst things that happens to people through a simple yet crucial document, a will. So would you mind to tell us what we mean by a will? So what is a will?
Well, quite simply, a will means the written expressions of a person about the distribution of the person's assets when the person is dead. At the time that the person is not alive to decide who gets what, the person, while he's still alive, has everything written in a document to specify and stipulate that after his death, this person should be entitled to this property, or that person should be entitled to that property, so that the question about arguments and disputes are curtailed.
Oh, okay. So that means that a will only takes effect after the death of the person who made it, commonly known as the testator, right?
That is true.
Okay.
A will only takes effect after the person is dead. So if a person makes a gift during his lifetime, that gift does not come under a will. A will be taken in writing and kept in a safe place.
Okay.
Under the custody or under the care of a person who is trusted to ensure the safety of the will, so that
we will delve into the details of how to do it right at a point. But I wanted to find out, is it anybody that can just get up and make a will?
No, actually, when it comes to Ghanaian law, it's only a person who is 18 years and above
Oh, okay.
who can make a will. However, when it comes to the armed forces, it doesn't matter the age. And somebody who is in active service in the armed forces can make a will at whatever age. Yes.
So if you are below 18, you cannot make a will. Why so?
Actually,
What if before you attain 18, you have substantial property? You know, these days and era, we have young kids that are really well-to-do.
it is all about what in law the law would say capacity or the ability for the person making the will to understand and appreciate the consequence of the decision he or she is taking. and the question about also placing responsibility or liability on the decisions of persons. You know, under the law, there are age limits to particular actions that people take in order for determining the consequences that may follow. So in our law in Ghana, under the Wills Act, the provision is that the person must be at least 18 years to qualify to make a will. Except, as she has said, if the person is a military person who is in active service and the armed forces, then irrespective of the person's age, the person can actually make a will.
So, Mr. Shaibu, you started talking about the format for making a will. And so, apart from attaining the age of 18, what other consideration should a person take when making a will?
Yes. So, first of all, a person makes a will over property that the person owns. So, in the law, it will say the personal property. So, if a person is making a will, the person doesn't make a will over the property that is owned by another person. So that if the person owns the property and the person wants to make the will over the property, the person, I have said earlier that the will is a written expression of the person's wishes. So it has to be written. So the person is 18 years, the will must be in writing. Now, the law requires that some persons must be appointed as the persons who will take charge of putting the terms of the will into effect when the person has died and the will is taking effect. The law calls these people the executors.
Oh, okay, so that means that you need someone to be named in the will to be able to administer the estate.
Yes.
Is it compulsory to have these people?
Yes, you need to have an executor or executors to actually administer the estate, because you are no longer there to see to it that that is done. So you need to sort of give the power.
Is there a qualification for these persons you are talking about?
Okay. Technically, the person should not be less than 21 years. Okay. That's the qualification.
So the extension I'm getting here is that the person making the will should have attained the age of 18.
Yes.
The executor should be at least 21. Is that what you are saying?
Yes, okay. Exactly. That's what we're saying.
Yeah. So to continue, I think I was listing the requirements under the law for making a valid will. Okay. So apart from the appointment of the executors, there are also two persons who are required under the law to attest to the will, to sign as witnesses to the making of the will, so that in the absence of these two people who must sign as witnesses to the person making the will, it affects the validity of the will. So these put together are what make a will valid in Ghana.
Okay, so just to add on to what Lateef just said, so the two persons must be present at the same time, and they must also actually observe or be there when the testator is signing. So they must be present over there at the same time.
Okay. So, I mean, the takeaway for me, I will try to bullet them one after the other. The person must be of sound mind, of legal age. The will must be in writing. The will must be signed by the testator. The will must be witnessed by at least two individuals. There should be a named executor who has attained at least 21 years. And then the will is about your personal property. Don't go and take someone's property and start giving it to people. It should be your personal property. Thank you so much.
Okay, so also when he talked about the sound mind, sometimes there are people who might not, I don't know, let's just say, they might actually not be in the right frame of mind at a particular time. But once they have their lucid moments, at a time that they are okay, they can act. They can act properly. Such a will, if such a testator makes a will, it will be held to be valid. Although during the whole period, they were going through some form of mental illness or whatever it is.
Okay.
Yeah, so once the person is lucid at the time that the person is making the will, it is valid. It's also a valid will.
So that is to mean that it's not a general rule that once a person has been taken to be of unsound mind,
Yes.
the person cannot make a will.
Exactly.
There are instances that the person attains lucidity,
Moments,
and once the
yeah.
person is in the lucid moments, the person can make a will.
Yes.
Yeah, so.
I'm just curious. So that means that you cannot just get up and on your own decide to make a will. It looks like you need someone to help you, or because looking at all the things you are saying, it doesn't come as easy as I thought to make a will in Ghana.
It's actually very easy. I would say it's actually very easy. Just that you need somebody to guide you. You need the services of a lawyer to guide you, because sometimes you realize that some of the provisions are very ambiguous. The people do not know what they actually mean by the expression that they have put there. And because it's a legal document, as Latif said, it's a legal document. So based on that, if the expression is not clear and it's ambiguous, then it becomes an issue. It's like, it's almost as if you didn't make the will at all, because your loved ones will now end up contesting the will in court.
Okay.
Yeah.
So contesting, under what circumstance can a will then be challenged in Ghana? Because you mentioned that there's a particular process you have to go through, there's a criteria, there's some validity provision, all that. If at a point I decide that I think that this will was not rightly done, can it be challenged? And where can it be done? What's the procedure? And under what circumstance can such challenge arise?
Yeah, so it is possible to challenge the content of the will or the validity of the will, but you must have some reasonable basis to bring the challenge on. Now, since the will is about the written expressions of a person's wish about the distribution of properties, it is possible that among the beneficiaries, some people will have their expectations. So usually the challenge will come when people who have expectations have been failed in their expectations. So they feel that, no, the will could not have been written by the testator, because by the kind of relationship that they have had with the testator, they don't expect that the testator will go without leaving them anything.
Yes.
Or the thing that has been said in the will that has been given to them cannot be so. So they believe that there was some kind of fraud or something of that sort. So the forum that you can, or the place to contest such a matter is at the High Court, largely. Paulina, you have something to add?
No. Yes. I concur.
So at the High Court,
So you've mentioned the circumstances that a will could be challenged in Ghana. You mentioned that if the person didn't have capacity.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that?
yeah. So the capacity talks about the ability of the person making the will at the time of the making of the will to have appreciated the consequence of the decision or the action that he was taking. Now, what circumstances, what factors may affect the person's capacity include, like Paulina has said earlier, the soundness of the person's mind. So if at the time of the making of the will, it is established that the person was of unsound mind, now it affects something we call the mental capacity of the person is affected. So the person could not have appreciated the consequence of the decision that was taken. Now, if also the person was below 18 years, it means that the person or the person's age has gone below the legal requirement of a minimum of 18 years. So the person will be said to lack capacity. Now, the other thing is also where, although the person may be above 18 years, and also the person is not a person of unsound mind, but the person made the will under duress, under some sort of compulsion, or some sort of force that is brought to operate on the mind of the person at the time that the person was making the will, then the law would look at the contents of that will with some suspicion. And so largely or legally in Ghana, that will would not have effect under the law. Or if the person made the will under some undue influence, brought on the person by some other person, it affects the validity of the will.
So key takeaways. Remember that a will can be challenged. So if you intend to make a will, then make sure that the required formalities are actually followed. They've mentioned a few of them. I'll summarize them. For lack of capacity, if you've not attained the rightful age of sound mind, if there's undue influence, if there's fraud or forgery, and if there is failure to comply with any of the legal formalities as required by the Wills Act in Ghana. So we are saying that a will can be challenged in court. And if you make a will that would have to now be challenged in court, then it's better you didn't even do it. And so we always recommend that the right procedures are adhered to. We've mentioned that a will can be challenged if the testator lacked capacity to draft that will. Also, if the will was drafted under undue influence or there's fraud or forgery, then it could be challenged. And failure to comply with any of the legal formalities, we've not been able to mention or exhaust them all here. And so we recommend that you seek legal advice for all the full requirements that you may need to make a valid will in Ghana.